Welcome back, everybody, to the Talking Philly Sports with Matty B program here on the Edge of Philly Sports with your boy Matty B here. Another Tuesday evening in the Delaware Valley, another Tuesday evening of talking my brand of Philadelphia sports, and it is great to be back with you as always. Which is Tuesday, February the 21st, 2023. It's 9 p.m. or around about 9 p.m. Little technical difficulties starting off the night. And you're with me and you're watching EOP. So that means we're together again. And as I mentioned, it is a absolute pleasure anytime that I get a chance to sit down with you and talk my brand of Philadelphia sports, which of course, I guess is different from a lot of other people's brands, but that's okay. Different strokes for different folks. We have a bunch to talk about, right? It's never a dull moment here in Delaware Valley. It never ever gets to that point where it's like, well, what do we talk about tonight? It's not. It's always something new. It's always something fresh. It's always an ending is always a beginning. It's really a fabulous thing. And we mentioned it a little bit last week when I was not on my tyrannical tirades about, don't question my fandom, that one of the bright spots, if not the only bright spot of the Eagles losing the Super Bowl, was the fact that we had a smooth transition from the football season to the baseball season. Because at that time, we were like literally, I think the day that we came on the air on last Tuesday was the day that the Phillies, or was it Wednesday or Thursday? It was right around after the show, a couple of days later, whatever. The Phillies and their pitchers and their catchers and their select position players who were going to be on the World Baseball Classic Team USA rosters all reported to Clearwater. And then in essence, spring training began. And then, of course, yesterday, or today, I should say, it was yesterday, we had our first official full team Phillies workout. So it's official. Spring training is upon us. We're one day into the spring training season, and we got games coming up, man. We're going to talk a little bit about maybe not so much the games, but we're going to talk about have the Phillies done enough, and what have the Phillies done in a very early kind of outlook on what the 2023 season may look like or may be for the Philadelphia Phillies, because a lot is going to happen between now and March 30th. Of course, March 30th is the Phillies opening day in 2023. They'll open on the road against Jacob deGrom and the Texas Rangers. I guess I know he's dealing with some stuff, but whatever, we'll see. So yeah, we got a month to the regular season begins, and so Phillies spring training is in full bloom. We're going to get into that. I'm also going to put a final word on the Eagles season. Now that some time has passed, and I think everybody last week was dealing with a lot of raw emotion, me included. And now that some time has passed, I'll put a final RIP, so to speak, on the Eagles season as we move into the off season and all the things that this is going to bring new to the Philadelphia Eagles. And of course, they're already on their way. We've lost both offensive and defensive coordinators. And, this team is already going to be at least schematically different in 2023 based on the fact that we've already lost two of our coordinators. But there's many more changes coming. And I'll put my final word on everything 2022 Eagles. And with the final word on the Eagles, I'm also going to talk the first word about that very little known spring football thing, folks. It's right. The world or the country has decided to embrace spring football again. The USFL is back for year 2. The XFL is back for, what is it, like reboot number 5. And then the Arena Football League is making a return as well. So I guess we can't get enough of football, and that's a good thing for a lot of people, and including me. And I'm going to talk specifically about the USFL and the Stars because I'm a huge Stars fan, and I had the privilege of covering the Stars last year for the Edge of Philly Sports Network, and I look forward to covering them again in 2023. And so we'll talk a little USFL, if you may or may not care, and maybe I can make you care. I don't know. I'll try, and then we'll finish things off tonight with, of course, our final word on the Flyers, as they are currently actually playing hockey right now as I speak in Edmonton. Carter Hart coming home. The Flyers and Oilers, as the Flyers finish up a Pacific Northwest / Western Canadian road trip before returning home on Thursday against Montreal. And we'll talk a little bit about the Flyers as we get closer to that trade deadline, March 3rd, at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here in the United States will be the NHL 2022-23 NHL trade deadline. So we'll talk a little bit about what potential changes could be in the works for the Flyers, and is it worth to really kind of hang in on the Flyers as they kind of limp towards the end of the season. But let's get things started as we do every night or every week here on the program with this day in Philadelphia sports history, brought to you by the good folks here at Talk Philly Sports with Matty B. And it's a really non-historical day in Philadelphia sports history, February 21st. Nothing much at all juicy to talk about. Nothing happened on February 20th either. And then in that matter, nothing going on February 19th. I had to go back to February 18th to find this little nugget in Philadelphia sports history. It ties in a little bit of both Philadelphia sports and the National Basketball Association. Did you not know, or did you know, that on this date, February 18th, 1983, with a tip-in play against the Houston Rockets, Moses Malone scored the 4 millionth point in NBA history. I didn't know that. I don't know who keeps track of that stuff, and I don't know if there's a guy out there that ran a database. And obviously, prior to the internet, what was that like? But Moses Malone had the honor as credited with the 4 millionth point in NBA history on February 18th, 1983. Again, your pseudo this day in Philadelphia sports history. That's all I could find, guys. I mean, don't be mad at me. I don't make the history. I just read it. So, but yeah, 4 millionth point in the NBA was scored on this day by Moses Malone against the Houston Rockets when he was still a Sixer. Of course, the 82-83 season was that magical Sixer year that they won the finals, and the last time that they won the finals. And he scored the 4 millionth point in NBA history on February 18th, 1983. Your day in Philadelphia sports history, brought to you by the good people here at Talk Philly Sports, Matty B, and the Edge of Philly Sports. So, hope you enjoyed that. I hope you enjoy listening to those as much as I enjoy reading them, because it takes a while for me to find some of that stuff. It's not just jumps off the page sometimes. I got to go research it, man. I am a busy man. Hey, Dave, what is up? How's everything going on with you? I hope all is well. All right, let's get into it. So, as I mentioned, if you guys read the ad starting off the show tonight, it's all about kind of that. And of course, this weekend in the Delaware Valley, if you had the opportunity to be out and about, it definitely felt a lot like spring. It did not feel like the end of February. And it got me thinking, it got my juices flowing. And obviously, with the end of the Eagles season, now it's that transitional period, and it's a smooth transition because we don't really have to wait for anything because we got baseball right now. The Phillies are in full team workout mode in Clearwater as the 2023 spring training has begun. Their first game is on Saturday. That's right. The Phillies will be playing 2 games on Saturday. It's a split squad event. Half the team will be against the Detroit Tigers, and the other half will be going up against the New York Yankees as they will kick off the 2023 spring season. And how did we get here so fast? And it's a great thing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining about it. But I had the opportunity, a unique opportunity last year for EOP. We did the Fightins Final, which was the start of the first time we did something like this on EOP, an every night post-game show. And I had the honor to host this thing for 180 games, it turned out, because I had the dual honor of taking it into the World Series, which was, you couldn't have asked for anything better for a first-year show. And I had the honor of hosting that show all summer and all fall and all spring. And I remember last year, I remember very, very vividly when me and Al talked about it. And I remember very vividly when the idea came to my mind. Do you guys recall last year? At this point, it wasn't about the spring. It wasn't about spring training, at least. It was about the lockout. We were still embedded in that, and they didn't really get that thing worked out for another 3 weeks. It was on St. Patrick's Day they got it worked out, and then they had that compressed spring training, and then the season was delayed by a week. So our spring and our baseball fever started a month later than usual, and I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about how it correlates it all to this year. And obviously, when you blend the Eagles into all that, it's a great time of the year. It's what this time of the year is all about. especially for me at least, growing up, coming up through the ranks, so to speak. You labor through winter, you anticipate spring. Baseball is like your first sign of spring. Spring training is the first sign of the spring renewal. You know that summer's around the corner when you're watching images out of Clearwater and you're watching the Phillies in their maroon, jerseys back in the day, and you know that's the first sign that winter is over or it's coming to an end. And we've made it back to that point again, folks. And we actually have meaningful baseball coming up here in about 2 weeks because the World Baseball Classic. There you go. There's all the hats for all the teams are going to participate in the WBC. But that's coming up here on March 8th. So we got meaningful baseball in early March to kind of go along with the spring training thing. As you can see, the countries are broken down by pool A, B, C, D. The U.S. of A is going to be represented out there in pool. I don't even see their hat. Where? Oh, yeah. What the hell am I looking at? Pool C, as you can see there. And the Phillies are going to be well repped on the WBC Team USA roster. JT Realmuto, I believe Trey Turner, I believe Kyle Schwarber are all participants with the 2022 Team USA WBC team. It'll start on March 8th, and all the games will be broadcasted on Fox, so you don't have to really break the bank to find some meaningful baseball. And that's even better. It goes along with this to make it even better because obviously spring training is what it is. You get to this point. It's great to see them working out, and then you get into the games, and maybe you're interested in the first couple games, kinda. But then by the early part of March, you're kind of just looking at stuff. You're looking at highlights. It gets kind of boring, and then by the time we get to the end of spring training, it's all about getting the season started. But what the WBC does, it provides that appetite, that appetizer for you to get ready for your season, and it's a great thing to have meaningful baseball. We go from meaningful baseball that we left in November right back to meaningful baseball in March. And then we come off a Super Bowl run. I mean, it's just you really couldn't ask for more. Obviously, we could ask for a world championship and a Super Bowl championship to kind of bleed into all that. But you know what? I'll take it where I can get it. So spring training is in full swing, and it's a beautiful thing. It is an absolutely beautiful thing. Absolutely. Dave says, you read today top 10 teams World Series list for 2023. Phillies were on the list. I was very surprised. Dave, that's a great segue, and we did not rehearse this, folks. So Dave can take full credit for this. Let's get into that. Let's get into the Phillies. Let's get into what's been done and what maybe still needs to be done. Because obviously coming off the field last year, when you take the Houston Astros into 6 games of the World Series, and you really I don't know about you guys. After Game 3, I thought they were going to win the World Series. I really did. I thought, after Game 3, I thought it was over, and I thought the Phillies were going to win the World Series. Obviously, Game 4 and the combined no-hitter went a long way to kind of changing that. But after Game 3, I was all on board with the Phillies winning the World Series. But now you get to this point, and it's going to be a lot like what the Eagles are going to have to realize here coming, or Eagles fans, or us Eagle fans. We're going to have to realize, and we'll get to that here in a minute, but just because you've gotten there doesn't mean you're guaranteed to go back, because there is no guarantees, right? Everybody starts at square one or square zero, and you got to work your way back. This team was, and we seem to forget this, right? We seem to forget that this team was not in no means a perfect team. This team was not a pseudo World Series contending team. It wasn't. It was way too top heavy. It didn't have enough depth in the bullpen. It didn't necessarily have enough depth off the bench either, but they found a way to make it work. And obviously, I think when we look at the ashes of the 2022 Philly season, the biggest thing to turn it all around was probably the firing of Joe Girardi. I don't think, and I kind of know this, that they don't get to the World Series if Girardi's their manager. And I was a Joe Girardi guy. I didn't necessarily want to see him fired, but obviously, I believe in retrospect, that was the reason why they got to the World Series, because I don't think they get there with the type of team that they had with Joe Girardi as the manager. I just don't think he was pushing the right buttons, and he didn't trust them enough, or he didn't trust his processes enough. I don't know, but I just think Rob Thompson pressed all those right buttons and got the maximum he could out of those players. Now, is that going to be the same state in 2023? Is Rob Thompson going to have that same ability to do that to this team that he did last year? but we don't know. The Phillies are confident that he's going to. They gave him that 2-year contract to take off the interim tag and make him the actual manager. But we kind of start the season already with the deck stacked a little bit against us. And right off the top rope, let's go with the big one. Bryce Harper. The guy underwent Tommy John surgery in late November. Now, I guess December, January, February. We're at month 3 now of that process. I would imagine he's. I know he's in camp. I don't know exactly what he's doing in camp. I don't think it's full team workouts. He's probably still rehabbing and potentially moving, into the mobility phase and the strengthening phase of his rehab. But Bryce Harper is months away from returning to this lineup. And, what I think they say the All-Star break is probably the good perception or when the prognosis of when he'll be back. Now, is he going to be ready to play right field? No. So we're probably going to have another conundrum of a problem where Bryce Harper will return, but only as a DH. And that really actually kind of hurt this team a little bit down the stretch, if you ask me, just a little bit, because it was hard to justify not having Bryce Harper in your lineup, but yet it was very hard to justify keeping Kyle Schwarber in left field every day. It was extremely hard to replace JT Realmuto as a catcher at certain stretches of the season with Garrett Stubbs. So it kind of clogged things up a little bit at that DH point when you just had Harper there. Now the Phillies are going to have an opportunity to see what life without Bryce Harper is like here starting very soon, Saturday actually. And I don't know, obviously that's not the optimal. We want Bryce Harper back. We want him in that lineup. He's the NLCS MVP for a reason. He provides that X factor inside that lineup, but it's really kind of the reality of the situation. Even when we get Bryce Harper back, he's not going to come back in the lineup on day one and start jacking home runs. No, you're looking at a month to 6 weeks for him to figure out his swing again, to catch the timing again. And he's going to be behind the 8 ball because he's going to be coming back literally around that halfway point of the season when everybody else is kind of rounding into, halfway point postseason form at that stage of the season. So it's not going to be the greatest Bryce Harper product of 2023 that we've ever seen, but it's going to be a product, and hopefully the Phillies can do enough to stay in the mix until Harper comes back. And then Harper, as he kind of rounds into form himself, it's assists the Phillies as they push towards a potential return to the postseason. But with all that said, have the Phillies done enough with the Bryce Harper situation in mind? Have they done enough to be better in 2023? And let's kind of explore that for a second. But let's get back to the fight and smile. By the way, just a PSA about the fight and smile. We're coming back, man. We got season 2 is on the way. Obviously, we're not going to start doing them until the regular season. I don't have that kind of, I'm dedicated, but I'm not that dedicated to come after the spring training games. So we will be back on March 30th, but also be looking for a fight and final, at least 1 or 2 between now and the start of the regular season. We got some unfinished business. We got to get you caught up on the hot stove and then get you ready for the season. So hopefully maybe we'll do one show and kind of combine those two, but we're definitely we're planning on something real soon with another, the first edition or episode of season 2 of the Fight and Final. So be on the lookout for that. Again, it's been an honor and a privilege to be part of that. We expect it to be bigger, better, and better in the good way, of course. In 2023, we're going to bring on some people, kind of do a clear the ice type thing that we're doing right now with having a kind of a crew and everything. So be on the lookout for that. There will be articles as well after every Phillies game. We're kind of hashing that out too. So we're next leveling it up there with the Fight Smile. But as far as the Phillies, have they done enough? Now, the big marquee move that the Phillies made this all season was the move that we all clamored for. I sat on the Fight and Final all last season. Every time Schwarber would strike out 4 times leading off a game, I was like, we need a leadoff hitter, and we need a specific leadoff hitter. He currently plays for the Dodgers, or he did, and the Phillies went out and did it. Trey Turner, the big marquee signing of the winter. John Middleton once again, and I know he was down in Clearwater earlier in the week. I think it was yesterday, shagging balls out there in the outfield or picking up balls with a bucket, and you got to hand to him. I mean, there was a time that people were saying he wouldn't spend. They were wrong about that. John Middleton was always willing to spend. Sometimes the people that were telling him what to spend it on, they didn't know what the hell they were talking about. So there's a difference between not wanting to spend and spending it the wrong way based on some expert's opinion. And obviously, they've worked things out now where we got Dave Dombrowski, who seemingly is pushing all the right buttons right now. But there's the verdict's still a little bit out on Dombrowski as some of his moves have not yet blossomed. Hopefully, that changes in 2023. But Trey Turner is definitely listening to the fans, definitely upgrading a position of need, not only at shortstop, but also at that top of that lineup. And Rob Thompson did state that they will entertain the idea of leading off Trey Turner, and I think he went as far as to say that if he was to have to answer the question right now in February, then yes, Trey Turner would be the leadoff hitter, and that's a smart man right there. That's a very smart man, and not only because I was probably the biggest advocate to get him out of that leadoff spot, Kyle Schwarber. That is, when you look at the numbers, they just don't match. Schwarber struck out over 200 times, led the league last year in strikeouts. Just can't have that starting off a game. That's not the table setter's job. And without Bryce Harper in the lineup for at least half the season, we got to make up some power somewhere. So moving him down into that lineup in that 3 to 5 position somewhere in there makes more sense, at least for now. Now, maybe it doesn't work. I know Girardi, remember last year, he toyed around with Schwarber as a cleanoff guy. I don't think he really kind of dedicated himself that much to it, but it didn't work out in the beginning. But I think Trey Turner, who only struck out 100 times last year, now he was batting second for the Dodgers, but is definitely a leadoff hitter, really fits that mold. He's a contact hitter. He very rarely strikes out. He puts the ball in play. He's fast. He makes things happen on the bases, and he's got power. He is the prototypical 2023 leadoff guy. Put him there. Put him where he belongs. Make him make some of those things happen for you. Kyle Schwarber, as I mentioned, is going to be needed deeper in that rotation to make up for some of the power the Phillies have lost by losing Bryce Harper for at least half the year. So that was a huge move to satisfy the fans, right? It immediately upgraded the lineup. It immediately upgraded the defense. It immediately upgraded our abilities to kind of compete at the top of the lineup. And it maybe put Schwarber in a position to be even more potent and more dangerous with those 46 home runs down there deeper into that lineup. So, checkbox, checkbox, checkbox. Now, the other issue as we moved through this offseason was the starting rotation. Now, again, you guys know how I feel about this, and it's one of the weirdest things for me to even wrap my head around. And I will never accept it. I'll never accept this concept as long as air passes through these lungs. The idea of and it's happening in basketball. What is the scheduled loss that the maintenance day, the scheduled loss, and all that. I will never accept that as long as I live. And in baseball, I will never accept a planned or programmed bullpen day. There's just nothing that is ever going to assuage me to accept that. I don't want to hear about your millennial analytics and your crap like that. I don't care. I just won't accept it. I think one of the problems why the Phillies lost the World Series last year was tired arms down the stretch and a mismanagement of those resources. There was not enough depth there. There wasn't enough depth in that starting rotation. And then when we got deep down into it, the obvious move for Syndergaard didn't work out. He did not provide anything what we needed in terms of stability or continuity or consistency in that starting rotation, pushing down towards the playoffs. And it really affected us, especially in the back end of the playoffs, especially in the World Series. Nola's arm was dead, probably by the NLCS. He was just done. And now I'm not saying that bullpen games don't help that. They do, and I understand all that. But to knowingly go into a situation where you have a hole, and this happened in 2021 with the Phillies. They knew they didn't have 5 starters. They went with a bullpen day every 5th day for the second half of the 2021 season. It was so frustrating. We didn't do that necessarily last year, but the Phillies heading into this season with a projected starting rotation of Wheeler, Nola, Eflin, not actually a hole there at 3 because Eflin was going to leave, Suarez at 4, and then a hole at 5 because Syndergaard left. What was the plan? What were we going to do? So the Phillies went out and signed Taijuan Walker from the Mets, who, listen, is he a 3? Maybe not. He's more of a 4 in my mind. I think he's more of a 4, but he is an innings eater and he's a workhorse. Now, he does have a tendency, especially in the later months of the summer, but this is kind of across the board, his arm gets a little dead. He does get fatigued, but he does pitch, and he pitches a lot, and he eats innings, and he is a definite upgrade. I honestly believe he's an upgrade over Zach Eflin. And Eflin, who took the money and ran down to Tampa, good luck down there, man. I appreciate everything you did, but I think Taijuan Walker provides. He's coming off some injury issues of his own, but he's been injury free. This is coming up on his 3rd season now. Hopefully, knock on some wood there. I think he's the perfect fit for the Phillies rotation right now. And I can accept him at 3. I don't necessarily like it, but I accept it. And I accept it as a potentially upgrade over Zach Eflin, who got hurt and ended up having to be moved to the bullpen anyway. So I accept that. So we got Wheeler, Nola, Walker, Suarez, and then a question mark. All right. So I get what was the plan, right? They were going to go into the season internally and try to fill that 5th spot in the rotation. I get that. I understand that. It's not immune to me. I get all that. But here's what I don't understand is why you would knowingly go into a situation and you would pigeonhole yourself right off the bat. Go out and sign yourself a for the cheap 5th starter, a 5th rotational guy, a Chase Anderson, a Matt Moore type player. Bring him in. If it doesn't work out, then you kind of have a safety net to maybe look at that internal option. But the problem with the Phillies plan in my mind is this. You're putting it already in the bag of the organization. You're saying, you know what, Andrew Painter, Mick Abel, Bailey Falter, Chris Sanchez, McGeary, whoever they want to put in there, you're our guy. And if it doesn't work, what's the other option? So not necessarily not saying that I don't think that Painter, Falter, or Sanchez, or any one of those guys would work out. I just don't like kind of limiting our options, I guess. And so with the internal option at number 5, it's going to be a camp battle. There's this pro Andrew Painter camp out there that's, let's get him in there. We seem to forget Andrew Painter has never pitched above Double-A, and he only pitched sparingly at Double-A last year. He got promoted to Double-A during the season. He never pitched above it. So him coming out of camp as the potential 5th starter, and if he earns the job, that's great. But we've already learned we know this lesson to be true as well. What happens in the spring does not necessarily correlate into the regular season. How many times have we seen it? Scott Kinnerly, Mickey Moniak. The list goes on and on and on. Players that value in the spring and they come out into the regular season and it's a dumpster fire. So I'm not saying that it's not an option that needs to be explored, but you're also kind of if Andrew Painter doesn't work out, then he goes to AAA. If Bailey Falter is your 5th starter, you put him in, but then you have an option, or you have a deficiency at the the long end of your bullpen. If you need some innings eaters coming out of that pen, if somebody can't get out of the 3rd inning. So I'm going to be interested to see how the battle goes. I'm going to be interested to see who becomes the kind of the front runner in all this. But I just don't like the optics of it. I don't like the plan of saying internally, this is what we're going to do. We're not going to go out and try to find a 5th starter. We're going to put all of our eggs in our own basket. A basket, by the way, that, let's face it, folks, has not been that full over the years. It's starting to kind of turn a corner a little bit, but this was a system just 2 years ago that was maybe the worst in all of baseball. And now here we are saying, we're going to find it internally. I don't know. I'm just saying, I don't like the optics of that. I hope it doesn't backfire on him. Dave said Falter pitched well at the end of the season. He did, Dave, except when it really mattered, right? When was it? I believe the NLCS, when he came out and couldn't make it out of the 1st inning. Listen, I agree. I actually watched Bailey Falter pitch 3 times last year, once with the Phillies and twice with the Pigs. And I do like what he has. I think he is a major league pitcher. I just don't think – I think right now he's more at the stage of his career he's at right now. I think it's better in the bullpen than it is as a rotational arm. But if he wins the job out of camp, then he wins the job out of camp. I just, again, don't like the optics of going completely internal because it kind of limits you a little bit. And as I mentioned, we have 4 reliable starters, and we got a big question mark. And it's obviously going to be one of the big stories in the spring. Who emerges as that 5th starter? Now, the other aspect that kind of let the Phillies down, but in a weird, not as epic way as it has in the past, was the bullpen. Now, on the Titans final, we coined the phrase "the blowpen," right? And it was a phrase that was actually very earned, and that was in the first part of the season, and kind of bleeding into 2022. What happened in 21, and obviously what's been going on in that bullpen since 2020, 2019 area. So, to the Phillies blowpen, and I'll use that one last time, to their um, defense, they turned it around epically in the second half of last season. They went from one of the worst bullpens in baseball to one of the best. And it was a huge, huge difference maker. And it was one of the reasons the Phillies got to where they got in the postseason was because of that bullpen. But once again, due to lack of depth and lack of consistency, we threw Zach Eflin in there, but we took something away from the starting rotation. Things kind of like petered out a little bit with the bullpen. Now, Dave Dombrowski obviously is done listening to stories about the bullpen because he has done more with this bullpen in one offseason than I've seen a general manager, president of baseball operations, whatever he is, due to it in one season ever before in my life. He added Greg Soto, Matt Strom, Craig Kimbrell, and these are to go along with Sir Anthony Dominguez, who, by the way, just got extended, and then Alvarado, to make up an extremely formidable back end of the bullpen. I think we're pretty good from the seventh inning on, maybe even the sixth inning if you want to use Matt Stram in that sixth inning role. But I definitely like what we got going on from the seventh inning to the ninth. We got about four closers on this team right now, or four guys that could fill that role as closer. That is something that is going to come into handy as we move into that dog days of summer, into that pennant run into September, is when we have the opportunity to go out there and have to pitch maybe Sir Anthony in 2 innings one night. Okay, we'll just turn to Soto the next night. We'll have those options there. That really, really helps. I am extremely excited about what the bullpen is going to look like in 2023. Dave sits here and says he's not too sold on Kimbrel. You know what, Dave? For the cheap that they got him for 1 year, I'll take it. He's another option. Can his arm hold up? Can that velocity hold up? We'll wait and see. But thankfully, because we got so many other potent arms in that back end, if it doesn't hold up, maybe we do something else with them. I don't know. But I feel you there. But if you just look at it on the surface, it's one of the most, like, as I said, the most work the bullpen's ever gone under in years. In years, this is the most attention that's been paid to the bullpen. And I applaud Dave Dombrowski for at least doing that because I'm tired of talking about it. And I know you guys are too. I'm tired of having to answer questions about it. I'm tired of being part of, like, associated with it. It needed to be fixed, and we did it. And I, at least on paper, we did it. So kudos to Dave Dombrowski for addressing the bullpen in epic, in my opinion, epic fashion. Now you add to the mix Connor Brogdon, Anthony Benetti, potentially Bailey Falter, and Nelson into that bullpen. You definitely got something there. You definitely got your early innings, your middle innings, and obviously we got the end of the game covered. So I don't think the bullpen is going to be the problem for the Phillies in 2023. Quite the opposite. I think it's highly upgraded over the version that came off the field in 2022, which leads me now to the final piece of the Phillies puzzle. And that is the piece that at the end of literally at the end of the World Series, I think kind of got our goat a little bit. And that was the bench. It's not a sexy place to be in baseball. I understand that. And it is an often overlooked aspect of the game, but it is crucial. And the Phillies were really lacking on their bench last year. They didn't have consistent power coming off that bench. There was nobody to turn to off that bench. It was pretty thinned out. When you have a Sosa batting in the late innings of the World Series as a pinch hitter, by the way, who almost hit a home run, but if that's your option there, and that's the best you have, there's definitely a deficiency there. There was no viable power coming off the bench, and that was pretty much the story of the season. Derek Hall filled in for a little bit until the moment, I think, overtook him a bit, but there was no consistent power back coming off that bench. And as being as top heavy as we were, and being as home run heavy that we were heading into the season, I think it was an unexpected problem for the Phillies. And of course, the Bryce Harper injury did not help. And then we lost Schwarber for a little bit. That didn't help. So things kind of took place that didn't help our cause. But I don't like necessarily what the Phillies have done to address that. I don't really see it yet. Maybe it'll come into play in Clearwater. I don't know. But we've gotten rid of Matt Verling. We've gotten rid of Nick Maytime, which I'm not necessarily upset about. These guys were what they were. They weren't that's not the power I'm talking about coming off the bench. We don't have that power right now. And we got Cody Clemens, Jake Cave, and Josh Harrison, who these guys, especially Harrison can provide you some slash and dash off that bench. He's not going to provide you any power or consistent power, but he's got that slash and dash, and I can live with that. Cody Clemens ain't going to make this team out of spring training. He's going to end up with Lehigh Valley. Jake Cave, who at one point was like a very highly touted prospect, last played with Baltimore last year. I think he was up and down with their system and all that. Don't know if he'll make the team. But if he does, it's going to be as a defensive replacement mostly to provide some depth in center field. And I know there's reports out there that they're teaching Sosa how to play the outfield. I don't know how I feel about that either. I mean, have we not done enough to address the outfield? So now we're going to try to convert a utility infielder into an outfielder. Do we all remember the Scott Kinnerly and the Reese Hoskins way back in the day, what we did to him? We put him in the outfield. I'm just saying, why couldn't we have just properly addressed those deficiencies? I don't know what necessarily the direction the bench is. I think it's worse than it was at the end of the season, or perhaps just same, but not improved at all. Got Stubbs coming off the bench as an adequate replacement for JT. Got that, but he's not an everyday replacement. We traded away our greatest catching prospect, Logan O'Hoppe, which still burns my ass a little bit. And so we don't really have a viable option there. So the bench and how that might or may not work out this season is going to be something I'm going to keep an eye on, because I don't see the power coming off the bench. And if I'm missing somebody, please please chime in and let me know. I know, was it Dalton Guthrie? Everyone's kind of high on him. He's kind of like Derek Hall 2.0 or Derek Hall light. Nothing really there to get me excited yet. I got to see it consistently. Got Derek Hall. Does he come up and make this team out of spring training? We've never seen him play defense. You know that, right? He never played defense while he was here. He pitch hit, and that was it. He never stepped on the field as an actual first baseman. So the bench is a little inconsistent right now, a little thin, and a little cloudy for me. But it's February 21st, and I understand that. But I just don't know if we've addressed enough on the bench. But overall, as I look at this team in the two main areas, you look at the starting rotation or look at the lineup, and you look at that bullpen. For me, those are the stellar parts. Those were obviously the parts of this team that, to me, required the most of an upgrade. And I think the Phillies went ahead and they did it. Obviously, the Bryce Harper thing is not optimal. Obviously, that is something that nobody wants to have to deal with. You don't replace a guy like Bryce Harper. You just deal with it. You deal with it. You deal with it. You deal with it. And you try, and hopefully you get to a certain that you can find a way to get to a point to when he gets back, he can help you get the rest of the way. So but obviously an exciting season to come. They're going to be they are the defending National League champions. Your manager will be the National League manager of the All-Star game this year. So a lot of Philadelphia influenced baseballisms that are going to happen in 2023. And we got a flag ceremony and a ring ceremony to deal with in April when the Phillies open up their season against the Cincinnati Reds at home. So it's an exciting place to be, and it all starts right now down there in Clearwater as full team workouts are in play, and the Phillies are at it, man. We have a game. We have two games on Saturday as the Phillies will split squad their way against the Tigers and the Yankees on Saturday, kicking off the 2023 MLB spring training season. And don't forget the World Baseball Classic on March 8th. Team USA, be on the lookout for them. Should be fun. Should be fun to watch. Again, meaningful baseball in March. What else is better? What else can you ask for, right? Dave says lights were too bright for Hall. We experienced that last season. They were, Dave. It was pretty. And I harken back to that Phillies Mets series at home. The last time they played them at home, I think it was in August. It was a doubleheader that weekend, and the Mets fan threw out the first pitch. That thing. I think back to that series when in that Sunday game specifically, where it was back and forth, Phillies Mets all day. Derek Hall had an opportunity to break some things wide open, score some runs, be the hero, and he struck out and you could see it in his eyes, man. He was scared to death being up there. So I think Derek Hall shrunk in the moment, That's not to say that he won't maybe learn from that and be better this year, but I'm just not ready to rely on that as, Derek Hall, baby, daddy needs some shoes. That's not what I want to do with Derek Hall as he continues to mature as a Major League Baseball player. Oh, look who's back, man. The Fish Hobbyist. How you been, brother? How's your offseason been? Says Phillies versus Mets will be great for ratings. It will be. It will absolutely will be, and I can't wait. And I am going to start off right now, Fish Hobbyist, to you and Sadar and all those other Met trolls out there that harassed me all last season. The Philadelphia Phillies will win the National League East in 2023. Take it to the bank. You heard it here first. I'm talking Phillies sports with Matty B. The Phillies will win the National League East in 2023, and it won't even be close. You heard it here. So here's looking forward to a great season. Don't forget, and when you refer to the Phillies, Fish Hobbyist, Sadar, and all you other Mets trolls, make sure you refer to them as the defending National League champion, Philadelphia Phillies. Give them the respect that they've earned. All right, that's all I'm going to say about that. We'll leave the Mets Phillies stuff right out there for a later date, and as we get ready for the baseball season. It's already starting, man. I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. So, yeah, there you have it. There's my take on the Phillies. And again, we'll be doing some fight and spinal stuff here coming up in the very near future. I will be doing, I guess, a recap of the hot stove and maybe a little season preview, potentially 2-in-1. We'll let you know. True that. Can't wait to start it again. All right. So as we transition, let's move on to another topic. Let's talk about our football team. But before we do that, I do have to pause for the cause here. Don't forget Philly sports trips, guys. If you want to travel like the pros, as I mentioned, spring training is underway down there in Clearwater. Yes, I know the spring training trips are sold out, but that doesn't mean you cannot see Phillies baseball through Philly sports trips. That ultimate bus trip up to Yankee Stadium in the Bronx on April 3rd. Definitely got to go there. Definitely got to be part of that. I hate Yankee Stadium. Actually, I can't stand it. It's a mausoleum. There's no good seat in the house at all. But it's the Yankees. It's a chance to go see the Phillies before they come home and start their home portion of their schedule. So go over to Philly Sports Trip. They got that. You want to head down to Kansas City this April and check out the draft and experience the hospitality of the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, then you need also go over to phillysportstrips.com and check out everything that they have to offer because they're going out to the draft this year. They're also headed to Denver for a kind of a split weekend, a Union and Phillies Colorado trip, May 13th to the 16th. And then the big one, they are heading back across the pond this year, Philly Sports Trips on May 24th with the Union. As, of course, last year they did the trip out there to Scotland for Father's Day. This year they're doing a trip to London and Leeds for the Union. So make sure you head over to the Philly Sports Trips for that and everything else that they got going on. Don't forget, if you're in the you're the Delco area, if you're the Ridley Park area, there's no other bar that you need to go to than Dolan's. PJ's a great guy. Never met him, but I've heard great things about him. This place is great. They got Quizzo, they got music, they got great times and memorabilia giveaway. You never know who's going to walk through the door at Dolan's. Head down there and have a great time. And if you're also looking to have a great time at a sports concert or theater venue, look no further than Sherry's Tickets Town at www.sherrytickets.com. Family owned and operated since 1946. For great prices, no hidden fees on sports concerts and theater venues. Save an additional 10% of your purchase by entering the promo code of EOP10. And they will take great care of you over there. And then my main man, Dave Cherry, at 610-565-0300 for all your workman's compensation, all your motor vehicle accidents, all your personal injury, and all your criminal law questions and needs and concerns. Call Dave Cherry, Esquire, 610-565-0300. Let him know Matty B, EOP, and Tom Close for Matty sent you, and he will take the best care of you that he can possibly take care of you. Now, let's kind of crescendo with the final word of my Philadelphia Eagles 2022 season. Okay. Last week, if you guys checked the show out, it got a little heated. I got a little personal. I got a little not annoyed, but I got a little defensive. That's probably a good word for it, defensive. Everybody, if you don't know, I'm going to give you to you in a nutshell. I was not a believer of the Eagles in 2022. I was also not a believer in the Eagles in 2020 or 21, 20, or 19 well, actually started at the back end of 19. Didn't believe in him in 20. Didn't believe in 21, and did not believe in him in 22. I thoroughly believe, and I still do to this day, the organization is being run by a fraud in Howie Roseman, and I think he's going to drive the team into the ground eventually. And I think that what happened this season, which was a great ride, and I ain't taking anything away from them, they did awesome. It was smoke and mirrors, and it turned out to be that, in my opinion. Again, this is all my opinion. And then starting next season, when we lose half this roster due to free agency, we've already lost 2 coordinators. We're going to really kind of see the genius of this so-called GM, and hopefully he figures it out. But to sit here and kind of and not that I had to like defend my own fandom, or I was under a personal attack or anything like that. I wasn't, or at least I didn't think I was. But to be called out in general, not specifically, but to be called out and say that you need to come along for the ride because you're an Eagle fan. You need to be this, that, and the other because you're an Eagle fan. I'm not buying that. I'm not drinking that Kool-Aid anymore because I've been an Eagle fan for long enough. I've been down this road many a times, and I've seen what this road leads to, except for once, and that's of course nowhere. And 2022 was no different than any other season, with the exception of 2017. It wasn't. You can pomp and circumstance all you want. You can tell me about the future all you want, but right now the reality was they didn't win, and that's just it. So I went on a tirade, and you know, and again, I mentioned this at the top of the show. Emotions were raw. Everybody was bitter. Everybody was hurt, and everybody was expressing their anger and their hurtness in their own way, not calling anybody out. And I did it too. And I've had time to think, and I've had time to kind of sit back and reflect on that. And I'm not retracting anything I've said, and I'm not retracting anything I will ever say. You know, I've earned my opinion, and I'm going to, you know, say it. I also respect others and their opinions. But as we move now into the 2023 offseason, and as the Eagles are dealing with now the loss of two coordinators in Steichen and Gannon. Now, Gannon's turning out to be the scapegoat of the Super Bowl, which I think is really unfair. I really believe that John Gannon, as an Eagle fan base, we're going to pin all the pent up frustration and all the anger to John Gannon's sleeve and say, you know what, you did this to us. And, you know, and it doesn't help when Brian Dawkins comes out and says, I could never play for that guy either. That obviously ain't going to help our case or help John Gannon's case. But I said this on the show last week. I will never blame a coach for my deficiencies as a player. I'm never going to do that because at the end of the day, it's me as a player who makes, you know, the metal to the road or the whatever. I'm the one out there doing the plays. You can put me in the wrong spot all you want, but you know, I don't think John Gannon was putting them necessarily in the wrong spots all the time. I'm not saying he was again, I'm not a John Gannon fan, but we're going to end up scapegoating him for the Super Bowl failure. We're going to blame him. We're going to say, oh, you know, now that he's gone, it's not going to matter. Thankfully he's gone. We'll bring somebody back in here and we'll get right back to the Super Bowl like it was, you know, like nothing ever happened. And that's just inaccurate. It's not realistic to think that. But the Eagles are faced now with a lot more than they had to deal with, you know, coming off of a bad season. They're faced with replacing 2 coordinators. They're faced with 6 draft picks this season. You guys know that, right? The Eagles do have those 2 those 2 first round picks at 10 and I believe 31 or 30, whatever it is. But then they have a 2nd round pick, a 3rd round pick, and they don't pick again until the 7th round. And they have 2 7th round draft picks. So they have 6 draft picks this year, 18 free agents. I expect maybe 1 or 2 of those free agents to bring back some comp picks for this year. There'll definitely be comp picks for next season because of these players leaving. I'm not necessarily sure what's going to yield for this season in terms of comp picks, but you know, there's a lot of freaking questions about this team right now. There's a lot of uncertainty about this team, and it basically plays into the narrative that I've been on since 2019. Is that this to me is not how you run a gold standard football team. You don't let 18 people hit free agency at the same time, or you don't put yourself in a position to have 18 free agents. And I'm not saying all 18 of them were, big time contributors. They weren't. There's some that are going to hit free agency that thankfully will be gone and we'll never see again. And they were the draft pick failures of Howie Roseman as well. But you don't let 18 players hit free agency all at the same time. That's not how you build sustained winning, in my opinion. You don't do that. You try to catch lightning in the bottle, and that's how you get 18 free agents at the same time. Now, if this is the new norm, and if this is what the fan base accepts, and this is what everybody is kind of on board for, then I guess I guess I'll just leave it here because I'll never be on board for that. Because isn't part of our thing from Philadelphia is we had, you know, we had we are our team. We're part of that team. We're invested emotionally in that team. We know these guys. We're interested in their lives. We're interested in them. How can we be interested in guys who show up here for 1 year, play here, then leave? Isn't that anti-Philadelphia? Isn't that anti what we are all about as sports fans? Aren't we supposed to relate to our sports players or our players? How are we going to be? Are we now in the rent-to-player business? We're just going to be interested in 1 year and then they're going to go. Now the Howie Roseman disciples out there will tell you, well, that's the way football is now. I disagree. I 100% disagree. And again, it's my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but I just feel that this is so hypocritical and so anti what the Philadelphia sports fan supposedly stands for that it sickens me. It absolutely sickens me, and I am out. I am out in the Philadelphia Eagles until Howie Roseman is fired or Jeffrey Lurie sells the team or both. Whatever. I'll take one of Howie Roseman's got to be fired though. I just don't like this way of doing things. I don't. I don't like the catching the lightning in the bottle, trying to roll the dice for 1 year. Come on, baby. Daddy needs a new Lombardi trophy. I don't want that. I want sustained winning, and I want year after year dominance. That is what we deserve in Philadelphia. I thought that's what we were all in it for. All right. So, as we move into the 2023 Eagle offseason, I look forward to some of these moves. I look forward to seeing what is done. I look forward to seeing, because with all these free agents does come some cap money. We're going to have money. We're going to have a lot of money. So, does he make the right moves? Obviously, the offense seems pretty set, pretty stacked, pretty good right now. Defense is going to be a shell of itself next season because most of the players leaving are on that side of the football. Now, as the Jordan Davises of the world, is he going to be ready to step into more of a starter's role next season? Because it didn't seem like he could get his head wrapped around that aspect, or either, I don't know if it was stamina, he didn't have durability. I don't know what the problem was, because we had those questions about him coming into the season. Was could he be in shape enough for the grinds of a football season? He ended up being a rotational piece. Is that what he was brought here to be with in the first place? Maybe. That's a pretty high price, a first round draft pick for a rotational piece. Now, Kobe Dean didn't see the field at all. I mean, he made the special teams, a couple special teams plays. He made a play in the Super Bowl. I got that. But was he brought here to be a special teams player? No, he was drafted in the third round because it was a Howie stroke of genius that this guy fell to the third round that we could pick him. But you know what? He didn't smell the field. Now, some of them people out there are saying it's because the Eagles wanted to play because they're white, because they were paying him money. And you know what? To believe that for a second, folks, you got to get your head examined. If you think that the Eagles would waste a year of a contract of a rookie, so he would sit behind a player that was brought in here because they paid him enough, that makes absolutely no sense. So is Kobe Dean ready for the field? I say he's not. I say the reason why he wasn't more of a contributor on defense is because he wasn't ready to be one. Will the new defensive coordinator unlock some secrets within Kobe Dean? Maybe he will, maybe he will not. But again, I'm just look at the real life of the defense. So a lot of questions on defense. Great answers on offense. We got an offense. We got an offense that's stacked. Jalen Hurts, I told you this last week. In my opinion, he is the franchise quarterback of this football team. Beyond a shadow of a doubt. He's won me over. I think he's won everybody else over too. By play. By what he did all on the field. And yeah. And we're gonna have to replace our running game. Some issues potentially along the offensive line, but for the most part, the offense comes back intact. How is that defense going to look in 2023 under a new defensive coordinator? And then what's the draft? Howie really has to hit on all those draft picks this year. He really does. We only have 6. It's a very low number to replace a lot of players. So all in all, 14-3 regular season. Was it an easy road to the Super Bowl? No such thing as an easy road in the NFL. But if you look historically, was it an easy road? It was. The Eagles didn't play any quality, they didn't play any elite teams except once. And that was in the Super Bowl, and we saw how that worked out for them. But it's not to take anything away from the Eagles. They don't set the other team's rosters, and I've said this millions of times. They're not in charge of that. They play who they're supposed to play. And they did what they had to do, and they deserve what they got, and they deserve to be where they are. But they also deserve to lose. That's just the reality. That's my opinion. But as we move into the 2000, and that's it. I'm going to put the Eagles to bed. Done. Got to walk away from them, putting down that and walking away. It's been a trying year for me. It's been a trying year for a lot of people in my circle. So I'm walking away from the Eagles for now, but I definitely will be back to revisit this as we get closer to free agency and the draft, of course. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is spring football. That's right, because football might be done with the Eagles, but it's not done, man. It's right. It's not done because your 2022 defending Northern Division champion Philadelphia Stars will be returning for the second year of the USFL, which will start on April the 18th, 2023. The Stars will be back to defend their Northern Division conference title. It's stop. The league is broke down into two divisions. There's like 6 teams. They don't have conferences. They have 2 divisions. The Stars came out of the North and lost to the Stallions, who came out of the West. Leave it there, or to the South. I even know if it was the West South. So, but the Stars are going to start, and they're going to bring back Mr. Cookus. That's right. Cookus, who came on for the injured Ryan Scott early in last season and led the Stars basically to the playoffs, led them to that championship game against Birmingham, played his butt off until getting hurt in that championship game. And CJ Costello, who replaced him in that championship game as the third-string quarterback from the Stars last year, will be back this year as well as his backup, as Bart Andreas and the boys will be back to bring it back to, well, Detroit, because that's where Stars are playing their games this year. As you guys remember, maybe you don't, and I'm filling you in for the first time, all the USFL teams played their home games in Alabama last year in Birmingham. Well, some teams have decided to return to their home cities. Other teams have not for other reasons. The Stars will not be out of Philadelphia this year. I don't know the reason why. They'll play their games at Ford Field in Detroit. Their home games will be played there. They will split that with the Michigan Panthers, who will also play their home games at Ford Field. The New Jersey Generals, also a team that's not returning to the New Jersey, New York greater metropolitan area. They'll be playing their home games out of the Tom Benson Stadium out there in Canton, Ohio. Now, if you're going to play somewhere on the road all season for your home games, Football Hall of Fame is the place you want to do it at, man. I'm telling you, I'm in on that. The USFL Championship game was at that stadium on July 4th, and I wasn't there. I got family that lives out in that area, and we were going to go, but things got weird. But anyway, so the Stars will play out of Michigan. We got a team entering the league. The Tampa Bay Bandits are no more. The Memphis Showboats are going to replace them this season. So same amount of teams, same divisional configuration. The Stars will be trying to continue a very impressive run in USFL history, folks. Since the inception of the league, which was in 1983, for those of you who don't know that, it wasn't last year, it was 83. Since 83, so 83, 84, 85, and then last season, 2022, the Philadelphia Stars have been represented in every single USFL championship game the league has ever had. And that streak continued last season as they made it to the championship game. So hopefully we get back there in 2023. Hopefully this time we win it. It'll be our 3rd time winning it if we do win it. So here's looking to another great spring season of the United States Football League and your Philadelphia Stars. And I will be covering them once again for the Edge of Philly Sports Network like I did last year. And I am a huge fan of the USFL. I don't know, maybe it brings me back to those innocent days of childhood when I was just a kid. I don't know what it is, but I'm a huge fan of it. Can't get enough of it. Go Stars. Let's run it back. Let's run it back, because this is a team that knows what they're doing. They draft well and they sign people. They run it back. Let's get back to the championship game and let's finish the deal this year. And let's win that 3rd ever. Let's win our 3rd total USFL championship. So, folks, looking at the big clock on the wall, and that is going to wrap me up for the night. It has been an honor and a privilege and a pleasure once again to come at you and talk with you on this Tuesday night, to give you my brand of Philadelphia sports. I don't care if you don't like it. I don't really care, because it's not about that. It's about respecting my opinion like I respect yours. And sports is not real. It's fantasy stuff, right? We're just having some fun. So until we talk again next week, what did they say, folks? That is the news, and I'm out of here.